The following program is sponsored and paid for by the Empowerment Zone Coalition.
He had lost $100,000 at one casino, went down the street and lost another $100,000 and then committed suicide.
It had gotten so out of hand that I was actually taking money out of the till at the United States Postal Service.
I was down so much money that I just wanted to get back to even.
Hi, I'm Coco. Most people know me as a radio personality and a comedian, but today I want you to go on a journey with me that is no laughing matter. Lottery, online gaming, casinos, scratch-off tickets are easily accessible to everyone. And while more people are gambling, the number of lives negatively impacted has also increased. It is estimated that as many as 10 million Americans have gambling problems. 150,000 Michigan residents are addicted to gambling. Up to 40% of problem gamblers have attempted suicide, and only 1 out of 10 problem gamblers seek treatment. Gambling trends indicate that the consequences will be dire for those who develop gambling problems and their families. We'll talk to 3 people from our community who have faced their gambling problems and overcome them. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, there is hope. Stay with us and we will share how you can get help for yourself or a loved one. Take us through a day of when you were gambling and what type of specific gambling did you participate in?
Yeah, I would wake up each day. I gambled online, sports books. They weren't necessarily legal at the time when I was doing it, but I was able to deposit money and do it that way. But I would wake up, I would grab my phone, I would look at what sporting events were going on that day, and I'd get my bets lined up. And then I would possibly even play the online blackjack games that they had on there. I knew it was a losing cause, but it passed the time. It passed the time until that first sporting event would start.
So let's talk about your lowest point in dealing with your gambling addiction.
My lowest point is when my now ex-wife came across a credit card statement that I asked for a higher credit limit. I knew that I was in deep debt, but I was chasing it. And when she came across that and I couldn't really give her a good reason why, then I knew that I was caught and I knew that I needed to do something about it.
So at what point did you realize that you had a problem?
You know, honestly, I knew I had a problem over a decade ago, but I didn't want to stop. I wanted to chase the easy money. I was down so much money that I just wanted to get back to even. But I know now that there's no way I would have stopped. If I would have got back to even, I still would have kept going. And it was never going to be enough.
Who was that one person that was sort of the catalyst for you to say, you know what, I got to stop this?
So for me, I wish I could say it was myself, but my ex caught me, and that was the motivation that got me to go to Gamblers Anonymous. But once I got there, I had to make the decision for myself. I couldn't do it for anybody other than myself.
So Stephen, let's talk about your current situation. Who is Stephen C. today?
I'm somebody that I can be proud of. You know, when I was actively gambling, there was so much shame and trying to hide it and trying to chase the money. The money was never going to come back. But the person I am today is somebody who can answer a question quickly without having to think of twice about lies that I told to cover stuff up. And it's refreshing and it's a better way to live.
Okay, Steve, take 60 seconds, more if you need it, and speak to the person that is trying to figure out if they have a gambling problem.
I would tell them if it feels like you're doing something wrong, if you're hiding it from people, if you're lying about it, you need to seek out help. Whether that be calling a gambling hotline, whether that be going to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting, that's what worked for me. Going to those meetings and seeing people that may not have the exact same story as me, but they have a story, and making me realize that I'm not just a bad person, that this is a disease. And as much as it pissed me off at first that it's a disease and it's not going away, I'm at peace with it now, that I can live each day, one day at a time, and work the recovery program and have a better life.
Thank you, and have an amazing, amazing life.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Throughout this program, there will be a series of questions that will help you decide if you or a loved one have a gambling problem. You will also find out how to get help. Have you ever lost time from work or school due to gambling? Has gambling ever made your home life unhappy? Has gambling affected your reputation? So listen, let me ask you a question. Okay. What was the point in your life that you said, I gotta stop gambling?
It was the time when I won $12,000 that became a high point, because I thought I hit the $1 million. And that was on scratch off tickets. And 2 weeks later, I thought that money was going to last for a while, but a couple weeks later, it was gone. I spent probably 3/4 of that trying to win more. And then my wife, she's been on me for the last 20 years to stop gambling. And the part of me is, the back of my head is like, yeah, right, I can stop anytime. Well, you can't. It's hard without help. And we ended up getting in an argument, and she decided the best thing for my help would be to separate. And that was the lowest point in my life, was having my wife being separated from me. I never thought that would ever happen.
So let me ask you another question, because I want to get into that. We need to talk about that. The point where you said, I'm gambling, but nobody knows. How did you go from watching or being a spectator, or was it something in your environment, to actually buying the scratch-offs?
It started off to be a fun thing. I thought, to me, instead of going to the casino, because everybody, if you go to the casino, you're going to get addicted, you're a gambler. I didn't want to become addicted. And I kept rationalizing to myself, since I'm not going to the casino, I'm not addicted to gambling. 20 years go by, wife separation, kind of opened your eyes. Started off being fun, and then eventually I started doing it just because, being a self-employed plumber, sometimes it's feast or famine. And when it's famine and you're going to the store with a family trying to get, pick up some groceries or anything like that, you got $100. I live 5 minutes away from the store, and go up and get some milk, go up and get some bread. My wife knows how close we are. I'd go to the store, it'd take me 45 minutes to an hour. She knows it don't take that long, because I went in, started buying lottery tickets, come back either with milk, bread, and no money left. That's just an example how it would be.
So you're the person that's standing in line just...
That's the other thing is, I want people to know is, a lot of people go out in their cars and do it. I've told a few people, say if you go into a gas station or a convenience store, if you sit there a couple times or once for a little bit, and you can see somebody walk in, walk out, walk in, walk out. They're gambling. And I used to be one of those people.
Let's talk about the very last time that you gambled and when you went to your first meeting for GA.
The last time I gambled was January 8th, 2019.
Okay.
I went into the GA meetings January 17th, 18th, somewhere in there, of 2019.
At the moment when you got to GA, Gamblers Anonymous, how did you feel? What happened? Did you still sit in the car and talk to yourself, or did you say, okay, I'm going in? What happened?
I sat in the car telling myself, you feel very low. You feel like you're the only person in this world that has this problem. But I had to tell myself to get up, go in, see what it's like, to listen to other people. I walked in, you feel ashamed. It takes a little bit. You got to tell your story, how you were there, what, the reason you're there, why you want to quit gambling. And once I started talking, started listening to other people, I felt very comfortable that I wasn't the only one that has this problem. And that's what I want other people to know, is you're not the only one with the problem. If everybody else has the same, they're there for the same thing, to talk about it. And once you start listening to other people, you realize you have things in common. Everybody's there because they hit their lowest point in life. And that's what the meetings are for, is to help you to get through that and talk about it. And I love it.
Okay, Mike, so listen, where you were then and where you are now, what's different?
I'm happy.
Okay.
Back then, I didn't realize I was happy because I was so caught up into the gambling. And you don't realize that until that low point.
Is there one last thing that you'd like to say to somebody that's listening?
Don't be afraid to call the number, the hotline. Just don't be afraid. They're there to help you, and they do help.
Next, we'll hear from a person who got his life back from addiction. But first, check out the following 3 questions. Have you ever felt remorse after gambling? Have you ever gambled to pay debts or solve financial difficulties? Does gambling cause a decrease in your ambition or efficiency? Please, stay here. We'll be right back. After losing, do you feel you must return as soon as possible and win back your losses? After a win, do you have a strong urge to return and win more? Do you often gamble until your last dollar is gone?
The day that the postal inspectors set out to, well, they don't entrap you, but they already know what you're doing. And they try to make things as discreet as possible. So at the end of my shift, I think I had maybe taken a few dollars. To show you how bad this addiction was, I had found a postal inspector's badge in the parking lot that same day, turned it in. Now, I said, here's a postal inspector's badge. I turned it in to my supervisor. My supervisor says, oh, wow, they're watching somebody else. I'm not even thinking they're watching me. I go in and the postal inspectors were coming in making buys. I take a few dollars that I'm going to play for that day. And, they had marked bills. So when I was getting off my shift, get ready to go to my car, they had a van parked next to my car. And they were sort of waiting for me to come to my car so that I could go in the van and they could, search me to see what I had on my person and to tell me that they had been watching me for a certain amount of time. And of course, at this particular moment, I'm just devastated. I'm feeling, all the guilt, the shame, all of that has welled up, and you can't talk your way out of this one.
So let's talk about your lowest low point, the lowest point when you were at the bottom.
So when I lost my job, I came home and I told my wife, and I just saw her just literally just fell to the floor crying, because we had just, we had bought a home and we were building a family, and, she was thinking that was all devastated. And, I really felt like I really wanted to just end it all because, I knew people and I would feel embarrassed for them to know that I had a problem that I had been covering up, because unlike drinking addictions and drug addictions, you don't see it on the outside. You can pretty much cover it up and people don't know you have a gambling addiction. So by it being a hidden addiction, I was able to have people think that I was doing well. And for them to find out that I lost a job and almost lost my family and put us in some financial jeopardy, I was at my lowest. Of course, you have to go through all of the legal procedures in terms of losing your job. I had a lawyer and things of that nature, but that's when I recognized I needed some help. And so I started going to Gambling Anonymous, and we did the 12-step program. And going through the 12-step program and my faith in Jesus Christ helped me to overcome my gambling addiction.
So let's talk about your support system. When you went into GA, who was the first person you met that impacted you in your recovery?
Well, when you go into GA, of course, they don't use regular names, but they would always tell their story. And when you hear other people's stories, it was helping me because a lot of them had lost way more than I had lost. And, so when you start to hearing other people's stories, it sort of lets you know that, well, if they can overcome it with that much loss, the loss that I've occurred or the loss I've suffered, I can overcome too.
So where are you now, Greg? What place and space are you in currently?
Okay, being a treatment service administrator for Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, I'm a co-pastor at Greater Bible Way Missionary Baptist Church. I've been married 27 years, 5 kids, and doing pretty good now.
Okay, so my question is, how many years or how long have you been gambling free?
Since 2002.
Okay, so you got 19 years.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a blessing to be unencumbered by something that was compelling you to take your money and just spend it unwisely. It's
Greg, let's talk about the parallel between the co-occurring disorder. So a lot of people that have substance use disorder also deal with the gambling addiction. So let's talk about the parallel between the gambling addiction and the substance use disorder.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, when I was a heroin addict, I always used gambling as one of my resources. I would go to the racetrack. I've done different gambling. I've played poker. I've gambled all my life, but I never saw it as a problem. But I knew heroin was a problem. I used the gambling to help fund my heroin addiction. So when I quit, once the Lord Jesus Christ delivered me from the heroin, I didn't think I had no more addiction because I didn't gamble after that. It wasn't until maybe about 20 years later that I saw other preachers playing the numbers. I thought the numbers was harmless, but I never recognized that I always had a gambling addiction. I always liked gambling. I didn't know that it would actually become an addiction because I thought the lottery was harmless because I see other people play it. But that's the whole thing about any addiction. Some people can do it socially, some can't. Just got to know the difference. Some people can drink alcohol socially, some can't. Some people can go to the casino and play $50 and that's it. They don't lose. For me, if I go to the casino and I lose 50, in my mind, because of not cognitive dissonance, I think I have to get my money back. I got to get mine back no matter what. So I'm constantly trying to get back or recoup my losses.
What are some of the things that the person that's watching you need to consider to say, I need some help?
Okay. Anytime you gamble and it takes more of your time and more of your money, that's an indication that you're on your way to a problem. If you find yourself lying to friends and family, or borrowing money, or even taking money, that means you may have a problem. If you run into some legal problems, that may be a sign that you have a problem. And if you do it on a daily basis, that's a sign that you have a problem. And especially if you do it on a daily, and the day you don't do it, you feel like you missed something. That's when you know you got a problem.
Thank you.
Have you ever borrowed or sold anything to finance your gambling? Are you reluctant to use gambling money for normal expenses? Has gambling made you careless of the welfare of yourself or your family? Okay, we're here with Dr. Carla Spite Mackey, clinical specialist for gambling problems. Dr. Carla, is there a common theme that exists for people that have gambling problems?
Absolutely. What we know is that the basis, the impetus, so to speak, is trauma, unresolved trauma and grief. And so when individuals have not resolved those issues, they look for an out. They look for a way to not have to deal with those things as they come up day to day. And so gaming came full-fledged into Michigan in the 90s. And so we saw many of our folk turning to gaming as a way to get into a quote unquote fantasy world and not deal with the trauma and grief that they were going through.
What are some of the signs that a person should pay attention to if they think their family member has a gambling problem?
Family members who disappear from family events, or family members who are always going down to the casino or always on the video games. Family members who are always borrowing lots of money from different ones. The pandemic has given us, I won't say an opportunity, but it has isolated us from even having conversations with each other. And we need to know that we should be communicating with each other.
So Dr. Carla, what draws seniors and teenagers into gambling?
So I'm going to call my seasoned people, the seniors, isolation, loneliness, and some just want to get together and, have somewhere to go. And so what we see is a lot of our seniors going on the bus to the casino together because it's a great hangout. And when I get there, people are catering to me. So I'm not isolated. For our teens, we're in an era of video games. And so they have video games. You can link up anywhere in the world and play somebody else. Video games, the thing that we need to know is like a precursor to the casino. And so it is an entree for our young people to get caught up in the video game. So now if I'm betting on video games, the likelihood as I grow older of going to the next phase of going to the casinos and gambling or going online betting becomes greater.
What can people do if they have a loved one that has a gambling problem?
First and foremost, I think get connected with Gam-Anon. Gam-Anon is for families, and will support families in looking at financial issues, which is a huge piece for the family who discovers that their finances are totally out of whack. Get connected, if you can, with therapy for yourself, because I think it's important for families to understand the entire phenomenon. So if the gambler does or does not engage in recovery, the family can engage in their own recovery and understanding. Secondarily, just knowing that you can call the 800 number. and talk to someone 24 hours, 7 days a week. That's a resource that's available throughout the state of Michigan. There are organizations such as the Empowerment Zone Coalition that have prevention programs, and several other organizations throughout Detroit Wayne Integrated Healthcare's network that provide not only prevention services, but treatment services. So connecting with those organizations in Wayne County, you don't have to be a resident of Wayne County. You don't have to have insurance. You just have to make a call and to seek the help, and the help is available.
I need to know, how do you help someone overcome the shame and stigma associated with a gambling problem?
I think it's critical for us to help people deal with that shame, to recognize that everybody has something that goes wrong, and that it doesn't have to be tragic, that trauma is trauma. How do you help somebody? You have to help them along the way. You have to help somebody understand that whatever they're going through, there is an answer. There is hope. And I think we have to sow those seeds of hope as we go along. I think it's critical for people to know that anybody, number one, can fall down. But there's hope and there's help. There are counselors available 24/7. There are organizations out here. There's Gamblers Anonymous, Gam-Anon, and there's a 24/7 helpline. And just reach out. Don't throw in the towel, because help is there no matter what it looks like.
Dr. Carla, we'd like to thank you for all the things that you shared in helping people to deal with their gambling problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
You will now meet Doreen Turk-White, the Executive Director of the Empowerment Zone Coalition, the organization that made this program possible.
The Empowerment Zone Coalition, known as EZC, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are dedicated to helping our community find prevention services and support needed for problems that threaten the well-being of individuals and families. In the last half hour, you have heard amazing stories from people who have recovered from problem gambling and got their lives back on track. You have also learned about life-saving resources available to help those who need it. We hope that this program encourages anyone who needs help with problem gambling to seek help and never lose hope.